everybody that this is recorded, and welcome my longtime friend and colleague Elias Papasavvas to the stage. And I've been looking forward to this, Elias, because you are truly a pioneer in this segment of financing senior living. And I know you've been working hard at your new launch, Second Act Financial Services. But before we dive into what you're doing now and this topic, let's let our audience get to know you a little bit better. Tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to your current career position.
Yeah, hey Steve, thank you so much for having me on. It's good to be back, and it's good to be active in the aging community again, especially in the Mid-Atlantic region. And yeah, a lot of folks on the webinar may know me, but a lot of folks may not. I got my way into the senior living field back in the 90s. I was actually an accountant at Arthur Andersen in Tyson's Corner. And the firm had Marriott Senior Living back in the day as a client. So that's how, as a 24-year-old fresh out of college kid, they had Marriott Senior Living. That's how I got exposed to it.
Yeah, a lot of people on the call probably don't remember or realize that Marriott and Hyatt were both in the senior living space back in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, and I'm dating myself saying that. And then at the same time, Sallie Mae, the student loan company that works with universities and helps kids finance college and collaborates with universities across the country, was also a firm client. So I kind of married those two ideas together and came up with a company that provided bridge loans to seniors in 46 states nationwide. I built that between 2000 and 2012 to cover 3,500 senior living communities. And as we were helping folks finance their way into a retirement community while they're working on selling their home, we learned that they have a variety of other needs. A lot of them are veterans, right? So we encounter a lot of veterans that want to pay for senior living. We encounter folks that need to sell their home, or they have a life insurance policy. So it became much more than just offering folks a bridge loan. And I'm very happy to say I invited a longtime friend in the industry, Suzette Graham from Patriot Angels, to join us today to talk about the VA benefit directly, because Suzette does thousands upon thousands of VA applications. So Suzette, say hello. Yeah.
Hello, thank you so much for inviting me today.
Yeah, thanks. And it's I appreciate that, because I know firsthand that the Veterans Aid and Attendance program is complicated, it's confusing, and it brings up a lot of questions. And so Suzette, tell us a little bit about your background, and then we'll dive into this topic. And I want to remind our audience that if you've got any questions that relate to finance or paying for senior living, feel free to throw them out there. We've got two industry experts here that are going to be able to help us better understand this. But yeah, tell us a little bit about your background, Suzette.
Well, thank you first of all for inviting me today. I'm very thrilled to be here. I actually started way back. My mother actually started teaching me the need to protect the vulnerable. She was actually the one that created the first feeding program in our town in Alaska when we moved there, and went on to create food banks and feed children in school in the mornings. And so while I was still in Alaska, I became the head of a foster parent organization and helped change the laws to get children out of foster care and into permanent adoptive homes. So I've always done vulnerable work, moved to Tennessee, started helping homeowners that were losing all their homes in 2008 and 9, keep from foreclosing. And then of course, when the market went soft, I went to work for a company to help veterans and widows, only to find out they weren't what they seemed. and then was asked by the industry, would I please start a company that helped veterans and widows get their benefits? That's all we do. We don't sell finances or anything like that. We don't try to sell products. We strictly help veterans and widows get their benefits.
I love it. Now, Elias, I know you gave me a slide deck, and you know, let's just dive into this topic. Would you like me to share your screen, the screen here?
Sure.
Okay, great. So let's just dive into this, and you just say next when you want me to advance the slides.
Sure. So today we're talking about bridge loans, home sale solutions, veteran benefits, and life settlements. And a lot of folks come and say, what exactly is a bridge loan, and how can it help a senior make the move to a retirement community? And it's really very simple. A lot of folks need to sell their home, and they're planning on using their home proceeds to pay for senior living. ASHA, the American Seniors Housing Association, just shared a data point that 74% of seniors that move into a senior living community or a CCRC have a home to sell. And so those folks are counting on the proceeds of their home sale to pay for their new home in the retirement community that they may have chosen. And Second Act is a senior-focused division of a federal savings bank, Liberty Savings Bank, out of Dayton, Ohio. And we put a program together that can provide folks a home equity line of credit on their existing home that is tailor-made for a senior to cover the fees of a retirement community and take their time to sell the home. I'd go to the next slide. And there's a story here that I'd love to share with you guys. So a recent study, a consumer survey recently discovered that consumers rank moving homes as more stressful than a divorce. And I was kind of stunned by that, but I think we in the industry, we kind of take for granted how stressful moving can be. I've got an 87-year-old dad, I've got an 82-year-old mom. I've been trying forever to convince them to move to Green Spring Village, which is a phenomenal CCRC in Springfield, Virginia, one of my favorite ever. And if they told me tomorrow, okay, we're finally ready, we want to move, I'd be doing two things. One, I'd be tap dancing with happiness, but I'd also be panicking that I gotta help them clean up the house, get the house ready to stage, list it, figure out who's going to buy it, and take time to get the money out of the house. So we had this happen. A leading age, a lot of folks in the DC area know Leading Age is the association for the life plan and CCRC communities. And there was a retired Leading Age researcher that recently wanted to move to Shell Point Retirement Community in Florida, Fort Myers, Florida. And the community had a huge waiting list. And they told her that when you need to move, when a unit comes up, you have a week to wire us the entry fee. So she has spent 3 months behind the scenes trying to line up the entry fee cash. So when she got that call that her unit was ready, she could dive in and take it. And for 3 months, talking to a variety of banks, credit unions, nobody really understood what a life plan community is. Nobody really understood what a entry fee was. And she went back to her friends at the association and she said, do you know anybody that can help me that gets it? And they connected her to us, and we were able to help her get a home equity line of credit. She didn't have to explain to us what an entry fee is and what a life plan community is. So what a bridge loan does is it enables somebody to take the money out of their home, use it to pay for the senior living or CCRC community they want to move into. And when they've sold their home, they could pay back what they've borrowed. Go ahead to the next slide real quick.
Now, as I do this, you touched on a couple of things. Number one, you were talking about somebody who works in the field of aging, and they were having difficulty navigating our services. And it's ironic you bring that up, because just the other day, I was talking to two people in one day who were in the field, who were helping their parents or helping a loved one, and how difficult they found it navigating our industry that they work in. And so that's a future discussion that we're going to have. And I had another point, but I'm going to let it go. Jump into this slide here, Elias.
Yeah, a lot of folks that we talk to, and we just opened doors in July. So this has been about 3 years in the making, coming back bigger and better than ever. We have $500 million in capital that we can lend to seniors in our first phase. And so in talking to a lot of communities, they say, it's a hot housing market. I'm not really sure if we need bridge financing. And what I hear other folks saying is, even though it's a hot housing market, the winter slows things down because nobody wants to list their home November through February if they don't have to. You have a lot of snowbirds that are going to Florida or really anywhere in the country. Unless you're in Florida or Phoenix, you're not listing your home November.
Yeah, and actually, February. I might sort of throw something in there that I don't know if you've encountered this, but what I hear an awful lot of are folks that are saying, I want to move to the community, but I'm not ready to pull the trigger on letting go of that home. And I see a financing instrument like this being invaluable in that it's sort of like, okay, I'm going to take out the bridge loan and I'm going to move into the community. And then I can sell this house in the next year as opposed to in the next month. And I interviewed a gentleman who lived in an independent living community, and he kept his home for 3 years. And what he would do is he would go home to pay bills, go to his previous home to pay bills. And it gave him that feeling of independence, and that he, was still in his beloved home of over 40 years.
Yeah, trying to time the home sale to the exact date of move-in is like having a gun to your head. And you bring up a good point. You may not be emotionally ready. I have a friend of mine, his dad passed away, and it took them 3 years to let go of the home while taking care of his mom in a retirement community. So they moved mom in, but the home was just something that took a long time to let go. And how does a bridge loan work? For every $1,000 that is needed, a family may need to pay $4 to $5 per $1,000, as you see on the screen. So it takes the thousands away and just puts it into $4 or $5 per 1,000 borrowed. And you mentioned one of the sponsors is Silverstone and new communities that are coming up on deck. I remember in my prior life, I personally led the financing options for a new CCRC, and we did $70 million of bridge loans. Almost 35% of the seniors that moved in took advantage of the financing because they got the best of both worlds. So, we don't know when folks might need financing. They may not tell us. They may not know to ask, which kind of brings up a good point. I'll toss it to Suzette on the VA benefit. If you want to skip a couple of slides ahead, a lot of folks don't know about the VA benefit and what it could do. So.
And actually, this is perfect timing, because Pam just asked, are non-homeowners financial issues going to be addressed after the homeowners? And the VA benefit is a perfect one that I imagine, Suzette, this is not tied at all to being a homeowner. It's tied to being a veteran and well, first off, tell us about this, the VA Aid and Attendance Program.
So the aid and attendance program was developed actually, and you had asked me earlier, it started with George Washington, then Lincoln brought it back up, and has been heavily talked about for the last 30 years in senior living, but difficult to obtain. And so the aid and attendance benefit itself is for any veteran or their spouse, living spouse, that had served at least 90 days of active duty, one of those days during a declared wartime, and were honorably discharged. So many of those clients could benefit from this. As a matter of fact, in stats, about 47% of people looking to move into senior housing or to get help are veterans or widows of veterans. And yet nationwide, less than 1.67% are getting benefits of any kind. So that's astounding. That just kind of lets you know how difficult it is to get. But the benefit itself is amazing. It's over $1,900 a month for a veteran. It's $1,245 a month for a widow, almost $2,300 a month for a married veteran. And that goes a long way when you're looking at senior housing, or you're looking at. However, this is kind of where the bridge loan comes in. To get to apply for the benefits, you've got to already be spending out for your care. So people who need the money have to still be spending out for care before we can even apply for the benefit. The benefit itself, on average, if you call the VA, they'll tell you it's about a 2-year wait. Through our company right now, our average time from the time we talk to the client until they're receiving the money in the bank on average is 97 days. So the clients must be living in a community, getting the care that they need, and then we can apply and get retro. That's how they can pay back that loan.
But it's a good idea for folks to, if they're considering senior living, to connect with somebody. Like, don't feel like you've got to go out there and do all that homework on your own. They should be connecting with you and or a resource to help navigate this in advance, so that you could potentially get lucky and, you know, move in and have your paperwork out the door so that you're getting compensated as soon as possible.
Absolutely. And it's a very difficult thing to achieve. Our average applications are anywhere from 50 to 150 pages. And that's kind of the secret sauce, I guess, to helping families get this, is knowing, what does that doctor's form have to say? What addendums do they have to have? You know, what each case is different. It's not a blanket one size fits all. So, you know, Mrs. Smith may have 3 bank accounts. So we need to know about all those, or there may be multiple divorces, or so every single client is different, and you have to know what you're looking for, how to pull those addendums, how to get them into the application, get it submitted quickly for a quick return from the VA.
So I just, Nancy had a question. Is there a cost to your service? How do people work with you to help facilitate the aid and attendance?
And I'm really glad you asked that, because I want to explain. The law says you cannot charge file for an application. We work under that law. We do not charge for an application, but we do a free consultation. That consultation right up front lets us know if you're a good candidate or not. We'll tell you if you're not. If you've divorced the veteran, if you don't have the right service times, things like that, we're going to tell you right up front. If you look like a good candidate that could be eligible and we move you forward, there is a fee for a long-term care assessment. And it is a 16-page assessment that we do according to that specific client, and we go through their finances. And that is a fee of $995. It's a one-time flat fee. We don't pay per hour. There's nothing after that. It's a flat fee. We then do the long-term care assessment. And if they want to move forward to fill out the application, then we do that piece for free.
Okay, great. Yeah, this has been a topic and, you know, that I've received constant questions on, and I've talked to folks, and actually there's somebody on the discussion, Deborah, who's used your service and said that it was very helpful in securing benefits for her mom. The
Thanks,
key
Deborah.
to veterans aid and attendance that I've heard is that walking the road alone can be a very long walk and very difficult to navigate. And so having somebody like Suzette assisting you can shrink that 2-year time period that the VA is saying down to a more reasonable time, and you can receive your compensation. So that's great that you're out there offering this this benefit. Now, you'd mentioned that this benefit has been around since the days of Washington and Lincoln.
Right.
When did the benefits start moving into senior living? Like, is this a recent development, or has it been
It's actually
utilized?
been about 30 years, according to Argentum. They've been trying to use this for about 30 years, but it's just very difficult. It depends on where you're at, and what city, what state, what kind of help you're going to get. And so some areas, they have great VSOs that know the program, but many of them don't. Service Connected is the biggest VA program. So most your VSOs and things like that, they know all about Service Connected, but very little know anything about the aid and attendance benefit. And so that's why I created this company, to be a central place. They all get the same attention. They all get the same hand holding. And this is all we focus on. This is the one pension that we assist with.
That's great.
And Steve, I want to chime in. You know, what Suzette talks about is so important. And we in the field, we know that there are two critical questions our families go through, right? The first question is, where should I move? What community is right for me? That's the most important question. And once they discover the community that's right for them, the second question is, how do we pay for it? And they don't know about the VA benefit. They don't know about bridge loans. They don't know about life settlements. It's up to us, being in the field and being connected like we are today in a pro-aging conversation, to line it up on a silver platter for them and say, did you know there are resources that could help you? And to create drip campaigns and to tie into CRM systems and make sure we take advantage of technology today to educate and inform consumers that these options are available, and we're proud to make you aware of them. You're of course able to do your own research, but if you're in a hurry and you want convenience, here's some options right in front of you from our community.
Yeah, and I'm glad, you know, when you brought up that the Veterans Aid and Attendance is a little known, not heavily utilized program, I threw into chat another discussion that we had that's on this topic that I want to make sure our audience is aware of, and that's the VA, the Virginia, not VA, the Virginia Medicaid waiver program. In most states, the Medicaid waiver program has a 2 to 5 year waiting list. There's a little known program in Virginia for those folks that are in Virginia and they know somebody that might qualify for Medicaid. You can actually get services activated. And so check out that discussion. That's another one on this topic. So, all right. So let's see. Let me, I got a few questions for you, Elias. Can you use a bridge loan when selling a co-op?
Yes. Yes, the Watergate in DC is a popular co-op that we have dealt with. Yes.
Okay, great. And then also Burke asked, is it okay if I share this PowerPoint with the folks as well as the recording?
Of course.
Okay, good, good. All right. So let's see. We can dive back into your slide deck here, and
yeah, that slide with the house is good. The slide with the house is good.
Great.
So that is That is a home in my neighborhood. Senior moved out, and there is a small army of kids working on it. They listed the home. They tried to sell it. Inspection issues came up, price issues came up, and so they realized they needed to do some work. And so a lot of times we have seniors or families coming through that may not tell us they have to go through this, and they're on our lead list, and we're working and working and working them, and we just don't know. You know, it is a hot housing market, but we do have those 5% of folks a year that may run into an issue selling their home. And then the next slide forward is one of my favorite slides. If you go to the next slide forward there. And I'll end on this slide here and toss it back to you and Suzette. People love having choices. I know that a whole lot of folks use bridge financing solutions, and a number of them asked me, what made you come back? And what made me come back is I think we have a much better priced set of alternatives. We can lend nationwide. I saw Patty. Hi, Patty. It's been a little while, but I saw Patty's question. Can you lend nationwide? We can absolutely lend nationwide. And it's just nice to give people choices. They feel empowered when they have choices. And it's been proven by the Insights Association and just about every study out there. Now, if you go past 3 choices, the brain may get overwhelmed, but 2 choices, 3 choices, it makes somebody feel empowered.
Great. Okay, and then you've got, okay, so we've talked about the bridge loans, we've talked about the VA aid and attendance program. On the screen now, you've got the topic of life settlements. Is that something
Yep.
that your financial organization does?
So we refer families to Retirement Genius. It is the team that is known as the Life Care Funding Group team that pioneered life settlement liquidity for long-term care. And again, this is something very little known. A lot of folks that may have a life insurance, as they get older, they drop it because they can't afford to continue the payments. And a life insurance policy is legal property. And just like your home or any other property, it is your own property and you have a right to sell it. And if you're in a senior living situation where you may have 2 years or less of life expectancy based on actuarial evaluations, if you're paid out for selling your life settlement, your life insurance policy, the proceeds are tax deductible. So at Second Act, as a division of a federal savings bank, we provide the bridge financing. But when we're talking to a family, we hear that they have VA needs. We may hear they have a life insurance need, a policy they don't know what to do with. We hear they need help selling their house. And so we have other departments that can immediately take over and hold their hand, whether they need help selling their home, they need to be connected to Suzette, they have a life insurance policy that's lapsed. The other key thing for your providers to know, even if somebody has stopped making payments on a life insurance policy, Steve, the law gives them 1 year, a full year to make up those payments. So we should be aware as a community that a life insurance policy, even if it was dropped, could be used to pay for senior living by having it sold to a life settlement purchaser.
Great. Now, not every life insurance policy qualifies for a settlement. Like a term policy would not, correct?
A term policy may, if it is a more terminal situation. Usually whole life insurance policies are your typical policies, $100,000 in face value or higher, usually can be worked with.
Okay, great. but this is, again, something for everybody to have in their, I guess, their checklist. If you're working with a client, if you're working with a loved one, if you're looking at your own finances and planning ahead, is hopefully, here's 3 resources that may or may not be able to be utilized to help finance this next chapter. Let's see. And that, I guess I'm at the end of your slide deck here.
Well, we would love some Q&A. We would love,
Absolutely.
some discussions. And as you're pulling up the questions, one of the things that we share with senior living professionals is they don't have to be the experts. They could just educate and make folks aware through an email campaign or the right flyer, and have the right phone number to connect them to experts. I had a Microsoft engineer literally track me down on LinkedIn, and he wouldn't stop chasing me until I responded to his phone call. And we got on the call, and he said, I want to tell you my story. I want to tell you my story. And I said, why do you want to tell me your story? I'm just one of a billion people out there. He said, there's just something. I know you could do something with this. And I said, okay, what's your story? He said, my mom had a stroke, and she needed to move into a senior living community. She's got 3 kids. All of us have master's degrees and above. And I work at Microsoft as a senior engineer. And then he went like this. It was 6 weeks of Googling. He said 6 weeks of Googling before the words geriatric care manager showed up on our Google searches. And he said, if I just knew what a geriatric care manager was the day my mom had a stroke, it would have saved us 6 weeks of chaos, because she got us to take a breath. She helped us find the right senior living community. She introduced us to how to pay for this. And it was like having air traffic control manage the chaos for us.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because, paying for the care is one component, but making sure that the decisions are what the individual who's receiving the care, that's the decision that they want to make, is probably, well, it is more important, obviously, but they work hand in hand, because if you don't have money to pay for the services that you want, then you've got to start getting creative. Okay, let's see. Okay, sorry about that. I'm looking at about 1 million screens here. Let's see. Burke asks, if I have enough equity in my home to finance what I need to buy into senior living, what are the pros and cons of a bridge rather than just refinancing my home and using the equity for senior living, particularly on the scenario when I want to go back and forth for a while?
So that's a great question. If you're listing your home for sale, most banks will not give you a home equity line of credit or let you refinance if you're planning on moving out of your home. But in Bert's situation, if you want to hold on to your home for a while and you're not listing it for sale, you could certainly work with your local bank and refinance and get equity out of your home. Or you could work with with Second Act to get a home equity line to just cash out the additional equity you have. But you could do both. The key is if your home is not listed. If your home is listed, most traditional banks won't know how to help you.
Great.
Can I jump in here real quick?
Sure, absolutely.
Generally, whenever you're going after a home equity line of credit, though, you have to do an appraisal, and then there's time. There's quite a bit of time it takes to pull that out, versus getting a bridge loan is generally days to get that approved. So that is one pro for using a bridge loan.
That's true. I forgot to mention it. We provide a decision within a day and funding in 5 days.
So this is quick, which is very important. Absolutely. Yeah, we all know those home equity loans don't happen overnight. And
Do
that would
not.
be another area for you to focus on, Elias and Suzette, if you want to blow up an industry, figure out how to make that move quicker.
Boy, yeah.
One thing that I want to address, because it's a topic that we've talked about earlier, is the reverse mortgage, and compare and contrast the vehicle of the bridge loan to a reverse mortgage, where a reverse mortgage is a product that's designed for somebody who's staying in their home, and they would like to receive some form of funding. Any thoughts on that, or anything you'd like to add on that, Elias or Suzette? On
Yeah,
reverse
and
mortgage?
reverse mortgages, when folks ask me, is this product good or bad? What I like to tell people is a product is good for some people some of the time. So it may be good for me, but it may be bad for Suzette. It depends on your situation. And so some folks may say reverse mortgages are bad. Or reverse mortgages are good. It depends on what you want. And if you're staying in your home, now there's the math component, but there is the life is more than math component, right? So the math will tell you, if you're staying in your home for 5 years or more, it makes financial sense to get a reverse mortgage. I will tell you, my opinion is, if you're staying in your home for 3 years or more, you may want to look at a reverse mortgage to help you kind of tide over the next 3 years, because life is more than just the math, right?
Yeah. Well, also, you also have to factor in what other assets you've got and what other financial vehicles you can draw from. But I just wanted to bring that up because reverse mortgages are a discussion that sort of intersects with what we're talking about. And I think probably the key difference here with the is that your instrument is especially helpful for somebody who's transitioning out of their home into a community or another setting, whereas a reverse mortgage is more appropriate for somebody that is, well, it is totally appropriate for somebody that's staying at home because you have to stay at home.
Right.
Let's see. Now, how about this one? And I see Laura Quigley, who's a real estate professional who's in the discussion, threw something into the comment. One of the things that's out there is sort of these companies that are out there that will just buy your home outright. Like, it's sort of like, you see that ads in the marketing all over the place where it's like, hey, look, I'll buy it today, sight unseen, and how does that factor into somebody's decision making?
I'll be interested in Suzette's opinion, but I think that's a great option too. I think the internet has made options more clear and available to us. And if somebody, typically these iBuyers will give you, 90% of fair market value, or 92% of fair market value, or 85% of fair market value. It's up to you. If you don't want to go through the hassle of selling the home and squeezing every penny out of it is not as important as the peace of mind of being done, absolutely, I think that's a great option. And we do work with a group that does that on a national basis as well.
Okay, great. It sounds like you've got a lot of alliances with other organizations, and somebody has asked, can your company assist with a reverse mortgage to purchase if and when additional funds may be needed for the reverse to purchase and buy? Well, do you assist with reverse mortgages?
We have relationships all over the country with the reverse mortgage companies, and depending on the region of the country, absolutely, we could refer someone. So the bridge loans are primarily for senior living, but if somebody wants to stay home and they need direction or a reverse mortgage, we could direct them.
Got it.
You bring up a variety of products. I wanted to reference the higher net worth individual that may have 5 million, 10 million, 20 million with Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley. And, there's something called a margin loan, where if you have stocks and bonds, you could get a margin loan with your stock as collateral. I remember doing a $1.1 million bridge loan in my past with a gentleman that had 10 million with Morgan Stanley. And I flew to Phoenix to have a cup of coffee with him because I was just curious why he didn't use his wealth manager at the time. And I guess I shouldn't have mentioned the place. But he looked at me and he was laughing. He was about 88. He had a bow tie. I think he was surprised at how young I was. And he said, "You flew to Phoenix to have a cup of coffee with me?" And I said, "Yes, you have 10 million with your bank. Why didn't you just do a margin loan?" And he looked at me and he leaned back and he said, "Do you think my financial advisor knows what a life plan community is and what an entry fee is or what life care is?" And I said, "No, but you could still tell him to give you a margin loan." And he said, "Yeah, but I'd have to explain it. And explaining is a lot of effort. And the community just handed this to me. I called, I didn't have to explain anything. It's just easier not having to explain myself."
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of us in this field have run into clients who really want to move to a life plan community because they've got friends there. They see the value in it. And when they consult their financial advisor, who may not be as familiar with this, of course, when you look at a spreadsheet, it's like, wait a second, what's this entry fee and what's all this about? And so that can be oftentimes a big speed bump for an individual that has pretty much made the decision that they're going to make that move, but they've got this advisor that may not be familiar with this market and how those products work. And let's see, I want to make a note on that here in a moment, but we've got a question for Suzette. It says, can a widow of a veteran apply for and receive VA money, no money down, home loan mortgage to buy a home if the veteran has passed away?
So we only deal with aid and attendance.
Okay.
We don't deal with VA loans or service connected so much yet. But as far as the VA home, we don't deal with that, unfortunately.
Okay. All right. Okay. And what I was gonna bring up, I pulled it up on my screen because Elias, you said a couple of things that triggered this. Is that we actually have a discussion coming up on September 29th, where we've got an elder law attorney, an aging life care manager, and our vet Reed from the Life Care Affordability Plan, who are going to be talking about this topic, how to pay for care. And I'm really intrigued by that discussion because we have the component of the elder law attorney and the aging life care manager that's going to be in the mix. So everybody just mark your calendars for that. That should be a pretty cool discussion. Let's see. Okay. Can questions be asked and requested for a quote on life settlements pre-planning before diagnosed with a terminal illness, 2 years of life expectancy, or chronic illness with two aids of daily living? Can you ask for and receive a quote before the crisis? Okay, so
Yes.
Okay, you get the question there. Is that so? Getting a quote before there's an illness that might activate the life insurance policy.
Yeah, the conversation can start. The actual quote will depend on what the illness may be, what the doctors are saying, or It could just be transitioning it to pay for long-term care, whether it's high acuity assisted living or high acuity memory care or skilled nursing. The folks at retirementgenius.com can have a conversation with you.
Great. And the someone thanks you for bringing up the value of aging life care managers. I'm glad you weaved that into this conversation, Elias, because the important thing, especially with the two of you here, is that none of us have to walk this road alone. And usually when you try to walk this road alone, whether it be as a caregiver or researching the various financial instruments, usually it's a longer road than it needs to be. That if you just reach out to somebody, and an aging life care manager is a great first person to reach out to, you can have a much better outcome. Let's see. Hugh Reese, who is actually, we're going to be featuring him on a discussion here next month, asks, is a bridge loan from your company an option for someone going through a 30 to 90 day process for a reverse mortgage to stay in their home? Yeah.
So it wouldn't be that,
No.
in that situation, we would not be able to help.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. When somebody is getting a reverse, from my limited knowledge, but when somebody is looking into a reverse mortgage, their intention is to stay in that home. And whereas the bridge loan gives you a little bit of an option there, because in theory, Elias, I could take out a bridge loan on my home and still be living there. Is that correct?
Yeah, you can. And we have a lot of resources on our website at secondact.com. We have a payment calculator that senior living professionals could play with, and we could help folks with. A bridge loan is right for some people some of the time, just like the VA benefit is right for some people some of the time, right? And we are big fans of aging life care professionals. We actually have a link to the directory from our website. We link to the Find an Aging Life Care Professional directory at the association. The association has really put together a robust search engine for folks. And we just had somebody in DC, a lobbyist downtown, text me and say, hey, I was talking with my wife and my mother-in-law, and we realized there was a need for an intervention. And I went to your website, and surprisingly, I somehow ended up getting directed to the Aging Life Care Association. And we found a geriatric care manager that is presently just fishing us out of water. And so, we're much more than a bridge loan company. It's resources and direction. And that's why I'm so glad that Suzette was able to join us today too.
Great. And another resource that's on the discussion for the selling your home quickly is Gail Huberman, who's with Market Pro Home Buyers. I'm throwing a shout out there as an option. The question comes in, so does Retirement Genius fund the payment of the settlement, or do they shop the life insurance policy to different funding sources to determine who will give the best quote?
So they're not a broker.
Okay.
They're a direct processor, and that brings a good point. Life settlement brokers typically can keep up to 35% of the payout, and so a lot of families don't get as much as they could if they can bypass the broker.
Okay, great. And obviously, if you reach out to Elias and his team, and you're working together with Elias and that vendor, now you've got even more people advocating on your behalf. So, so that's great. Holy cow! hours always burn through way quicker than I can imagine. I'm looking
There's
down.
a lot of questions here.
Yeah. No, I love our audience because they really drive these discussions. I'll let folks know that I've got through the pile of questions there and we're kind of wrapping up. And that always triggers a question or two, but I'll turn it back to the two of you. Is there any sort of closing words of wisdom that you might want to share with our audience?
I'm going to say ladies first. So Suzette, Mike is yours.
Well, I would say if you're a veteran or widow and you're not even sure if you're eligible for this or not, that's when you reach out for help. Because like our company, we spend 80% of our time navigating through families' needs. And this is what you need to do to become eligible, or this is what you need to do. A lot of people have been told before they don't qualify, or they don't have the right service time or too much money or whatever. We're able to discuss that with them, let them know what their real options are. And so I would say, just don't try to do it all on your own. Like you were saying earlier, it's nice to have help. It's nice to have somebody in that seat that knows how to navigate this piece. If we do VA, Elias does bridge loans. I mean, it's nice to have a professional in each different department as you're going through this. Most of the time, people, once they're in this situation, it's not been a long thought out process. It's immediate. That's why they reach out to Elias for a bridge loan, because mom's in the hospital. Doctor says they can never go back home. She can't go back home. What are we going to do? Oh my gosh, we have a home. We can sell it eventually. She's got to move into a senior living community tomorrow. She's a widow of a veteran. We have no idea if she's eligible for anything. What's our first step? How do we get this started? And so that's like you were talking about the difference in bridge loans and going out and do a reverse mortgage or something. A bridge loan is quick. It's when you're in that emergency situation and you need help right now. That's when you need to reach out and do those things. So don't try to manage it on your own is what I would say. Just ask questions. You don't have to follow through and do it, but ask and get all the information first.
I'm not cutting you off, but Elias, that triggered another question for Suzette. So is the aid in attendance for healthcare, or can this be used to assist with changing housing and going to another type of senior living for the widow or the veteran? Yeah, my understanding is aid in attendance can be used for assisted living. It can't necessarily be used for independent living or home care, correct?
Yes, it can be. Yes, it can be.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, this is an eye opener. This is fantastic.
So aid in attendance can be used in independent living, can be used in home care, assisted memory care, as long as the client is private paying and in need of care. Okay, so what does that mean in independent? Independent living, as long as the doctor says, look, I want them in a safe environment, protective environment, cognitive or physical injuries or illnesses, as long as the doctor will sign that off on the doctor's form, and the community has 24-hour attendance. So as long as somebody's on staff 24 hours a day in a community, or if they're paying for in-home care, then yes, they can use this benefit there as well.
Well, this is great. I'm glad you clarified that, and thank you to the person that asked that question. Another really good reason why you should consult with Suzette and just make sure that, if you're looking for a loved one that you think might be a veteran or a widow of a veteran, just check it all out.
Absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely.
And Elias, I'll let you wrap things up and
yeah, that was a great question that was thrown to Suzette. That was such a key question. So whoever threw that question out, thank you for bringing that to everyone's attention. What I would say, Steve, is I've been in the senior living world since 1997. I remember the first time I called you and left a voicemail when you were pioneering the guide to retirement living, and I was just a kid. We're back as a division of the Federal Savings Bank. The long-term plan here is to build a bank focused on seniors and the 50+ demographic, more regulated by the FDIC and the OCC, and have consistent rates and terms nationwide. When you have the FDIC and the OCC behind you, there are no shenanigans that could go on. So I would just encourage my old friends to reach out for a conversation, and for folks that don't know me, for a new conversation on how we could help.
I love it. All right, folks. Well, thanks to everybody for tuning in today. Like I mentioned, this is recorded. I'll share the recording at proaging.com. I'll put a link to Elias's PowerPoint and contact information for both of our panel members. Thank you. Hats off to both of you for your entrepreneurial spirit in serving this audience with these important resources. So
Thank you.
Thank you for
everybody
having
have
us.
have a safe and lucky Friday the 13th.
That's right. That's right.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.